And we continue at 1:06 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang's in the state of New Mexico.
John, we ran out of time, and I didn't get to play you one final piece from that story of the crazy man in Pasadena. This is what he uttered when the police were tackling him, and it's the first time I've ever heard anyone say this.
I have scoliosis, you're hurting me?
I have scoliosis, you're hurting me.
Scoliosis, you're hurting me.
Well, I guess the cops could have kicked him in the crotch to find out just exactly which gender he really is.
Scoliosis, you're hurting me.
What's going on with just people losing their minds at a much faster rate than it seems they used to lose their minds in the past?
It is meth.
You think this one's on meth?
I don't know how to explain this behavior except for meth. There's massive paranoia. Who knows why he bought all the guns and he was going to take them to the Apple store because his iPhone got hacked, and there's some kind of custody dispute. I don't know what's going on here, but I bet you meth's at the center of it.
Custody dispute? Is he the father or the mother?
Scoliosis, you're hurting me.
All right. Well, I guess we'll never know. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Well, we know that the race for governor of the state of California is starting to heat up with more candidates jumping in the race, it seems, day by day. I guess another Republican candidate who I've never heard of before announced on Lara Trump's show on Fox over the weekend that they would be entering the race. The bold-faced names so far in the race, on the Republican side, you have Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco. You have former Fox contributor Steve Hilton. On the Democratic side, you have former Orange County Congresswoman Katie Porter. You have Javier Baccarea.
Scrub it.
You have Tony Atkins, Tony Thurmond, and Antonio Villaraigosa.
No, peanut.
Don't forget Elaney.
For Californians.
That's right. I wonder if on the debate stage they can put the three Tonys next to each other in honor of the band Tony, Tony, Tony.
You know, London Breed would love that.
If you are not here, FOMO.
So Antonio Villaraigosa is probably the most visible candidate for governor so far. He's doing more campaigning than the other candidates. Many of the others are hedging their bets. They're waiting to see if Kamala jumps in or not before they really go all in. Villaraigosa says he doesn't care if Kamala gets in the race or not. He's running to win it, and he's not going anywhere. And recently, he showed up on Fox 11 with Alex Michelson.
And what's going on here is Antonio Villaraigosa has found a way to get a lot of people to pay attention to him because he's the only person so far on the Democrat side running in this race that is asking, what did Kamala and Baccarea know about Biden's mental decline?
Okay, before we play the tape, Kamala has a lot of questions to answer because she had lunch with Joe every single week. It was his dementia, his senility, his whatever you want to call it, was on full display in her face, in person, every single week. Biden didn't know Baccarea's name. So I'll give
Secretary of Health and Education Service, I nominated Javier Baccarea.
I'll give him a pass on this one. But Kamala, no dice.
Let's hear what Tony V had to say as he stirs the pot with the Biden mental decline.
Watching.
This was Fox 11 on Friday.
Watching. The issue is
eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat.
I'm just looking at the waveform of that groan. That is some specialty groaning.
Can you believe they tried to run him for president for another 4 years?
I can. There are 4 parts to this groan.
Yeah, you get the government you deserve, kids.
if
It sounds like a 75-year-old car that is on its last legs.
How could they let this man drive, let alone be president?
if we finally beat
If your car sounds like this, you probably used to call the motorman.
Oh, definitely take it to Pep Boys.
if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
Was President Biden's debate performance just one bad night?
No.
No, the man has tapioca instead of brains.
Or was it something that was often seen behind the scenes at the White House? The new book, Original Sin, by Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson, argues that debate was not an aberration, and there was a concerted cover-up by the Biden team to conceal his condition from the public.
Now, Johnny, have you gotten this book yet?
I have. I'm 100 pages into it, and it's exactly as described.
Biden's vice president, Kamala Harris, could be a candidate for California governor. His Secretary of Health and Human Services, Javier Becerra, is already in the race. Also in the race, Antonio Villaraigosa, who is raising questions about what his fellow Democrats knew. Antonio Villaraigosa is, of course, the former mayor of Los Angeles and former Speaker of California's Assembly. He joins us now.
Wait, you're not going to put in there that he was on the board of Herbalife?
Oh, yeah, right near the airport.
He joins us now. Mr. Mayor, welcome back to The Issue Is.
Alex, good to see you.
Great to see you as well.
It's Alex, but whatever.
Getting the guy's name wrong is the perfect way to start the interview. Did you ever see that episode of George H.W. Bush, who was then the vice president, on with Ted Koppel, when Ted Koppel was the host of Nightline on ABC News, and he was doing a two-way interview from India. He was on a foreign trip to India and was doing the interview with Ted Koppel, and you could tell that George H.W. Bush was blowing a point too. He was legally drunk in that interview. And he kept calling Ted by the wrong name, and he kept switching the names every time he'd say it.
So what is your main point about Original Sin?
Well, as you said it, people have called it a cover-up, a conspiracy.
By the way, he hasn't actually read the book. He's only read the excerpts that made it online, but he is making this the central issue of his campaign.
Okay, legitimate question. I want you to give me an honest answer. How long has it been since he's read a book of any kind?
It's been a while.
Yes.
Of people, coterie of advisors, cabinet members, the vice president, all of whom participated, watched him every day.
And we have to put this warning out. I know a lot of people are enjoying themselves this week. You do not want to play the Antonio Villaraigosa drinking game and take a shot every time he says, because he says it a lot.
Oh, yeah. You'll be on the police body camera footage just like Senator Cervantes if you play that drinking game.
Watched him every day and saw his deteriorating health and kept it from the public. And so I've asked a simple question. What did you know? When did you know it? And why haven't you said anything? And, of course, there hasn't been a response from either one of them.
Do you think that there was a cover-up?
I don't think they know who you are.
Do you think that there was a cover-up?
I don't know, but in reading excerpts from...
He's just a guy asking questions.
Okay, I understand that they all knowingly lied about Joe Biden's condition, but this was not some kind of state secret. Anyone who watched the news understood the guy was senile. It wasn't hidden from you. It was in plain sight every day. You just had Democratic politicians denying reality every single day, and Democratic voters, at least some of them, believed those lies. They weren't lying to the whole country. The people on the right knew about Joe Biden. The people in the center knew about Joe Biden. It was only Democratic voters who were of the belief that Joe Biden was 100% with it because people they respect told them that.
Oh, and the cameras are off. He's just sharp as a tack. Even Gavin was spewing that all the time.
Oh, yeah. In public, he falls down the stairs walking up the stairs. But in private, he's putting Rubik's Cubes together.
In reading excerpts from that book, what's very clear, there was an intentional effort to keep it from the public. that Biden's health, President Biden's health, was deteriorating over time. It wasn't just the debate that we all saw where we said, oh, my God. They were doing things a year and a half earlier to hide that from the public.
We know that Kamala Harris was his vice president, was with him all the time, likes to talk about the fact that she was the last person in the room before big decisions were made. I mean, if that was happening, she would have seen it, right?
That's the question.
Okay, don't play the game where you're just asking questions. You know she was aware of it and lied about it. Just say it.
For some reason, as much as Antonio Villaraigosa wants to stir the pot here, he doesn't want to go in for the kill.
No, it's like if you see one of these guys who's sloppy at the bar making a pass at a woman, and then the woman shuts him down and says no, and then the guy goes, well, I was only joking. Well, Antonio's only asking questions.
There was also excerpts in the book that Javier Becerra was confused for Secretary Mayorkas. The Homeland Secretary. And that's the simple question. I think there's an answer to that question, and I think we all want to hear about it. Because it's really not just about what happened in that book. It's about the consequences. Mm-hmm. Trump got elected, a convicted felon, an election denier, a climate change denier, someone who's put tariffs that are hurting small businesses and middle-class families, who's cutting Medicaid.
Boy, Biden was really unpopular if he lost all that.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is why I don't mind the lies at all, because their lies put them in a situation where they had a choice between two unelectable candidates. One of the takeaways from these books is that they never really had a shot in this election. Maybe there were moments in time, where the polling, not for Biden, but for Kamala, had it within the margin of error, where in theory, if Election day was on a day that she was polling her best and Trump was polling at his worst, maybe she had a shot on that one specific day. But outside of a fluke like that, they were going to lose this election the whole way through. Had they had an open primary and they had a stronger candidate, maybe we would have had a different result. But their lies directly led to them losing the election.
Here in California. So it's the consequences of this failure to act or say anything that we're really focused on.
So you blame Biden for the fact that Trump got elected?
Well, I blame the people around him who...
See, he won't go in for the kill shot.
No, he always does this. Remember he did this with Prop 36, where he talked about how the Democrats were too soft on crime, and then he was asked, well, do you support 36? Well, that goes too far. He wants to be on both sides of everything.
Refused to say something about, sir, you're not ready for another 4 years. It's clear from this book that they intentionally kept it from the public.
Well, they did intentionally keep it from the public, and half the country believed them. And that half has to look at Donald Trump on television every single day because they believed the lies their leaders told them.
Now, Alex retorts all of this with a very good point and uses some very good sound in that I don't know how much you could blame Baccarea for this cover-up because Biden didn't know who that was.
I mean, obviously, you're mentioning Kamala Harris and Javier Becerra, both of whom are probably your two biggest rivals. Javier Becerra, though, was not necessarily known for having the closest relationship with Joe Biden. Here's how Joe Biden introduced him when he was naming him as Secretary of Health and Human Services.
I like to think that we influence this.
He listens.
And I'm grateful to, and I'm grateful to the members of my COVID team that I'd like to introduce to you now, who will lead the way. I'm really proud of this group. For Secretary of Health and Education Service, I nominated Javier Baccarea.
That never gets old.
I mean, didn't get the name of the cabinet right, or didn't get his name right, which I guess should have been a warning sign then.
Well, and if you remember, there were a lot of criticism from the White House about his performance as HHS secretary. But that's really not what's at issue here.
He's getting real bitchy with Javier Baccarea.
Oh, those two don't like each other. Don't forget, they ran against each other for mayor the first time around.
Scrub it.
But that's really not what's at issue here. For me, it's the consequences of their failure to say anything. It's their participation in this charade that somehow the president was ready for another 4 years. And the consequences of that is what I'm focused on.
Biden did not know who Javier Baccarea was at any point in time. I forget which book it was. Maybe it was Game Change. Whichever book was about the 2020 election. I read that one too. And basically what happened with Javier Baccarea was that when Biden was filling his cabinet, the Latino caucus went nuts because they said that they weren't getting enough appointments. And they not only wanted a Latino to be in that position, but they wanted someone who was a member of their caucus, the House caucus specifically. And Biden buckled to their pressure and literally said, well, find me a Latino. And he, at the time, was no longer a member of the House Democratic Caucus. He was the Attorney General of California. And they went out and nominated Javier Baccarea at the very last minute without doing any due diligence at all, including calling Nancy Pelosi, who hates his guts, and said that they should have called her and she would have talked them out of hiring him because he's so bad at his job. And they hired him anyway, and he was a complete disaster the whole time he was there. And Biden never learned his name all 4 years.
Well, we're just getting started here, Johnny, with this interview. Antonio Villaraigosa sits down with Alex Michelson to stir the pot on Biden's mental decline.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Will writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Isn't peanut farmer Villar a 4-time bar exam failure? Books we know he never read for sure was anything to do with law on the cover.
No, peanut.
And Randy, as we approach the halfway point of today's show, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts app, iHeart, Spotify. Do a Google on the YouTube. Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes because you know no one else is doing what we're doing. There is no other radio show in this state that has the sound of Queen Elizabeth doing a Ricardo Lara impression.
I may be criticized and dragged through the mud for it and get my wig snatched, as the gay guys say.
In the meantime, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
Let's do that right now. 790 KABC welcomes Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin Evening at the Greek Theater on May 31st. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. But right now, call in number 9 at 1-888-790-5222. Gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Needle Concerts. Good luck dialing.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number. Right now, we're going through the sound of former L.A. Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa sit down with Fox 11's Alex Michelson.
And Tony V gets asked about the strategy of bringing up all this Biden stuff when he's running for governor.
You know, there's a lot of Democrats that are going to watch this and say, we're really concerned about what the president now is doing, and that all this time talking about Joe Biden is distracting from what the president now is doing. They point to the fact also that this could be a risky strategy for you. I mean, Kamala Harris won California big, Joe Biden won California big, and there's 25% more Democrats in this state than Republicans. I mean, could this be a risk in bringing all of this up and maybe not the smartest strategy?
First of all, this isn't a strategy.
Yes, it is.
It's entirely your strategy. The establishment is never going to support you. They think that you're a has-been. The only way for you to make a lane for yourself is to run as the outsider, and this positions you as the outsider.
First of all, this isn't a strategy.
It's not? It's not. This isn't a political play to get your name out there and to go after.
Why do you think you're literally doing this interview right now?
I love that Alex is like, come on, shoot straight with me here.
It's not. This isn't a political play to get your name out there and to go after your main opponents.
I love my country.
Yeah.
And we just elected a man who is a threat to our democracy, who has done everything he can to undermine our economy. A man who I don't think is fit for office, but who clearly won because we had a 100-day campaign. If we had had a longer campaign...
If she had a longer campaign, she would have lost by more. He clearly didn't read the book. They made that point very clearly.
If we had had a longer campaign with a candidate that could articulate not just what we're against, but what we're for, we might have had a different election. So this isn't a strategy.
Yes, it is.
And you know what? It's the only way you could potentially win. So from that point of view, it's a smart strategy. But be honest about it.
This book, I didn't write this book, by the way.
You also didn't read it.
And you admit that you didn't read it.
I didn't. All of the focus of the media on this book is because the revelations are damning.
Right.
And what I'm focused on is the consequences. We've elected a man who's going after this state, who wants to go into hospitals and courthouses to deport people, who is cutting Medi-Cal, who...
You notice he didn't say prisons, because that's what Billy Asalia is doing right now. He's going to the prisons, and he's finding people who have warrants, and he's using that as the excuse to deport them.
Going to hospitals and courthouses to deport people, who is cutting Medi-Cal, who doesn't believe in climate change.
We've already said these things now, Tony. You're repeating yourself.
He sounds real tired.
We need...
He's been out of the spotlight for 12 years, outside of that weird press conference where he was Gavin Newsom's infrastructure czar, and then he wasn't.
They taped that show in the afternoon, too. There's no reason for him to be tired.
We need to have an accounting. We need to know what happened. So, and we need to be clear that there were consequences for...
Now he's talking like Kamala.
She knows how to be clear.
We are clear and have been clear.
That there were consequences for this conspiracy.
And you're suggesting in that 100-day campaign, that was Kamala Harris. That wasn't Joe Biden who was the nominee.
Right.
You're suggesting that she did not do a good job, basically, what you just said.
What I'm suggesting, she might have done a better job if she had a longer period of time.
Why won't he go in for the kill?
He just won't. He wants to play footsie with being bitchy, but he doesn't want to go all the way in.
We had a 100-day campaign.
Yeah.
That's the other reason why she should get in if she wants to get in. At the end of the day, we need to shine.
Oh, you're one of those, are you?
Oh, he likes cliches, too.
At the end of the day...
Saved it.
we need to shine a light on all of us.
Yeah.
Guarantee you, they will shine a light on me.
Yes, well, let's...
When they do, they're going to see I've been a proven problem solver.
Oh, not this again.
Now we're going to go into the stump speech, are we?
I have a record of as...
Nobody remembers your record.
Wasn't he Speaker of the Assembly in the 90s?
As Speaker of the California Assembly, balancing two budgets when I was Speaker, largest expansion of health care, sensible gun.
There are a good majority of Californians who will be voting in the gubernatorial election that were not born when Antonio Villaraigosa was Speaker of the House.
No, and even being mayor of Los Angeles. So it was him for 2 terms, and then we had Garcetti for 2 terms, including one super term that was like 6 years, because they changed the date on the election. And then we have Karen Bass.
Nobody remembers what it was like at Antonio Villaraigosa's Los Angeles, except for maybe they remember the Lakers scandal.
He was 3 mayors ago.
Sensible gun laws. I, as mayor, put our city on a sound financial track in the middle of a recession.
How does any of this work if he wants you to look at Los Angeles? Because Los Angeles is a disaster now, and he could very well say Garcetti and Karen Bass screwed it up, but he won't do that.
No, he'll imply that it was better when he was there, but he won't make the obvious point.
Yeah.
You know, number one American city in reducing carbon emissions, number 5 in the world, a 50% drop in violent crime. So I have a track record. Let's put the light on all of us.
All right. Speaking of the man's age, did that subject come up?
Why, yes, it did.
Since you're raising the issue of age and cognitive ability, you're now 72. If you were inaugurated, you'd be...
When COVID was going on and he wasn't cutting his hair, he looked about 102.
He looked like Father Time. He had big, bushy white hair. He looked like Barbara Ferrer. But then didn't he grow out a beard or something, too?
You're now 72. If you were inaugurated, you'd be almost 74. If you served out an entire 2 terms, at the end of your second term, you'd be almost 82. Should voters be concerned about your age and cognitive ability?
Let's be clear about this. I'll be roughly the same age as Jerry Brown.
Yeah.
Last time I looked, Jerry was one of the best governors we've had in a very long time.
What?
That's a low bar. Maybe compared to the current jackass, but not compared to the good ones.
I would say the best. And the fact of the matter is, I'd go into his office and he'd do pull-ups every day. Well, every morning I'm doing push-ups and I'm in the gym. I'm healthy and I'm ready. And so...
Is he wearing short sleeve shirts when he's at the gym and you can see all of his tattoos?
Oh, no. I think he's in a tracksuit and he looks like Jack LaLanne.
And I'm ready. And so, you know...
You'd be roughly the same age as Joe Biden, too.
No, I'd be roughly the same age as Jerry Brown.
I mean, if you did a second term, I should say.
And you got to get elected first.
Okay.
And then you got to have 1 term. And I tell you, I'd rather be transformational in my first term than mediocre in 2 terms.
Yeah.
That's what they all say, and no one ever wants to give up power, no matter how old they are.
Nope. If he gets elected, the first thing he'll do is open up an account to get reelected.
So, you know, the people will decide, but so will I. And so I'll tell you what I won't do. I won't ever allow advisors or misrepresent to the public whether I'm ready for the job. I can tell you this, I'm ready for the job.
Let's go to the phones and welcome John in Danville. John, hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
I'll tell you why I'm calling. I told your call screener. I was a policeman in Oakland. I was sworn in 56 years ago, 1969. And I left in 10 years later. But it's incredible. Part of the issue here is the expectation of the policeman from the patrolman up to the rank of chief and the police culture training. In my day, if you drove a car into a gas station with a guy working, that's not a burglary. That's an assault with a deadly weapon or attempted murder. And you go after that guy. But like you say, they're so hamstrung, and it didn't get any better. And part of the big problem there is they have a federal monitor who monitors the police actions. And the things these guys are disciplined for is absolutely incredible. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. Now, the guy's been there for over 20 years as a result of a caper. You probably don't recall it. It was known as the Riders. It was 4 policemen accused of a variety of criminal charges, about 35 charges. A consent decree brought in a federal monitor. He's been there for 20 years. Apparently, he hasn't straightened the problem out, but he makes $300,000 to $500,000 a year. And he not only does it in Oakland, I'm told, he does it in other police departments throughout the country. So when you show up to work, who wants to put anybody in jail? Who wants to put their life on the line if this is what you're going to get as a result? the council doesn't back you up, the police commission doesn't back you up, you're out there on your own, and you better watch your back because the city's not going to back you up if you get sued for doing some real police work.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it. And Randy, I think I just figured something out.
What's that?
We're not live today in the Bay Area. It's tape, correct?
Yes.
Okay. He called from Danville, which is in the East Bay. I think we're talking about a subject regarding crime in Oakland in the Bay Area on the tape. And I threw out the phone number and said, if you want to weigh in, give us a call. He called in. We're talking about Antonio Villaraigosa, and it's basically a Three's Company script.
I love it. I think he was probably, if I'm correct, the best of that I put together up there is the poor cashier that got 2 different smash and grabs on him at that Chevron in Oakland in 2 days.
Okay, now it all makes sense.
I love it.
Because when he started talking, I thought, okay, what does this have to do with Antonio Villaraigosa?
We're moving the server. Everything should be live tomorrow, hopefully. But yes, it might happen again before 3 o'clock where somebody calls in on something completely unrelated because that's what's airing is the best of on KSFO. I love that. That is so great. John, I think we need a reset.
Yes, Antonio Villaraigosa, the former mayor of L.A., candidate for governor, did a sit-down with Fox 11's Alex Michelson.
And by the way, you might be wondering, what exactly was Antonio Villaraigosa doing in all these years since he ran for governor in 2018? Well, John, apparently, he was in a production of Les Mis.
At the end of the day, at the end of the day, at the end of the day.
Oh, yes. Antonio Villaraigosa headlining at the Pantages Theater.
All right, let's hear what Tony V has to say about Medi-Cal for people in the country illegally.
Another big issue, healthcare for undocumented immigrants, something that the state is grappling with, went way over budget. The governor's pulling back on that program somewhat. Do you support it? Do you think we have the resources to pay for it?
Let me just say this. We just got out of a pandemic. The pandemic.
Is he fading?
I think so. What do they call that? Sundowning?
He's getting weaker as this interview goes on. And it wasn't that long of an interview. I think the whole thing was 16 minutes.
Now,
Let me just say this.
The takeaway, by the way, after the whole Joe Biden debacle, if people did actually read the books, unlike him, is that you don't want an 82-year-old governor.
Let me just say this. We just got out of a pandemic.
Well, look at the last time we had an 80-year-old governor. He got so sentimental in his old age, he let everyone out of prison.
He did that, and he built the bullet train as a great big monument to himself.
Old people love trains.
The pandemic didn't say you're undocumented or you're documented, and you're not going to get. You're not going to get.
You're starting to sound a lot like Joe Biden.
You don't say.
You're not going to get COVID as a result. We pay more in the emergency system today over the long term than if we were providing that care.
But we are providing that care, and the emergency rooms are still full. So what exactly is the money we're saving?
No, and we're blowing the budget.
So we've got to look at how we've cut costs.
If you look at the numbers for the amount of money we're spending and the amount of people that are enrolled that are in the country illegally, it's like in the tens of thousands per person.
No, they're not saving us any money at all. They're spending money, and they're doing it for political reasons because Gavin Newsom thinks that it will benefit him in a Democratic primary.
Cut costs. There's no question about it. The governor's a grown-up, and so am I. We got to look at.
You're a little more than a grown-up, Tony.
Oh, yes.
We got to look at all of the budget. But I'll tell you something. We already pay more for the undocumented through emergency care, and that's a fact. All the
Does he know that he just said that?
I don't think so.
All
I
the
don't think
experts
the
will tell you.
Democrats are going to buy what he's selling. I really don't. Just independent of his politics, independent of his resume, independent of any of that, he sounds like a tired old man. And they just got burned by one.
All the experts will tell you.
I mean, the argument against that is if you offer free health care to people, some say that's like a magnet for bringing more undocumented people here, and then it just keeps
Actually,
getting more and more
More
expensive.
have left because of the economy, because of the high cost of gas, because the 66% increase in the utility costs here in California in the last 6 years. They're actually going to Texas and Tennessee and Georgia in greater numbers than they're coming to California.
So it sounds like you're open to the idea of continuing that program or maybe even expanding that program, what you're saying.
What I'm open to is looking at the entire budget.
Once again, taking both sides of the issue.
Yeah, it's not a good look. Not a good look, Tony.